My parents put our house on the line to pay for my brother's education, completely overlooked my own struggles, and recently tried to hijack my wedding. But what happened next? It shut everyone up. The wedding's set for April. My fiancée and I have been planning this thing for well over a year. She's 27 and honestly, she's been dreaming of a spring wedding since she was a little girl. You know, the classic image, flowers in full bloom, the weather just right, that fresh new beginning kind of feeling. And honestly, I'm all in. The idea feels uplifting, like the perfect way to kick off our next chapter together. I'd been looking forward to it, really looking forward to it, until last week flipped everything on its head. To give you a little background, I'm 27 and my older brother is 30. Growing up, we couldn't have been more different. He's always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, at least in our parents' eyes. Seriously, that guy could crash a car into the living room and they'd probably say he was just learning responsibility. Meanwhile, if I forgot to take out the trash, it was the end of the world. That kind of treatment didn't go away as we got older, it stuck around. When college came into the picture, the favoritism really started to show. My parents took out a second mortgage, a second one, just to cover my brother's tuition. It was a huge deal for them and the debt weighed on them for years. By the time it was my turn to head to college, the well had run dry. So I had to hustle. Scholarships, part-time jobs, late nights, you name it, I did it. And look, I'm proud of how I handled things. But underneath it all, I can't lie, there was some resentment simmering. Fast forward to now, I've worked hard, landed a solid job, and things are finally stable. I've even been helping my parents out financially. They're still paying off that second mortgage, so for the past couple of years I've been sending them $650 every month just to help ease the burden. They never asked me to do it, I just felt like I could, so I did. But here's the kicker, even with all that, it still feels like I'm invisible to them. My brother? He's still the shining star, even though he hasn't really done much since getting that diploma. Speaking of my brother, he's been in a relationship for about 3 years now. From what I've heard, things aren't going great. His girlfriend's been dropping some not-so-subtle hints, more like billboard-sized suggestions, that she's ready for a ring. But he's been dragging his feet the whole time. Truth be told, I don't think he's ready to settle down. But hey, that's his mess, not mine, so I've kept my nose out of it. Or at least I did right up until last Saturday. It was just after lunch. My fiancé and I were chilling at home, ironing out the final details for the wedding, you know, picking out table arrangements, deciding on flowers, that kind of thing. Then my phone buzzed. It was my mom. She goes, "Hey, can you come by? We need to talk." Her tone was dead serious, like something major was going down. I asked her what it was about, but she just said, "You'll understand when you get here." Honestly, that kind of thing drives me nuts. I hate it when people pull the "we need to talk" card without giving any clue what it's about. It just makes you spiral the whole drive over. My fiancé could see I was irritated and asked if maybe we should just stay focused on the wedding stuff. I considered it. I really did. But curiosity got the better of me. I figured, whatever it is, I'll make it quick and be right back. I even said, "How bad could it be?" She rolled her eyes, but she didn't stop me. Looking back now, I should have just stayed home. So I pull up at my parents' house and right away I can tell something's off. The whole setup felt like an intervention. My brother's on the couch looking smug and my parents are sitting across from him like they've rehearsed some kind of big speech. I sat down, already on edge, and then my mom launched into her speech about how important family is and how special moments should be shared with loved ones. I should have known something weird was coming. Then she hit me with it. My brother had this brilliant idea to propose to his girlfriend during our wedding reception. According to my mom, it would be super romantic and the perfect time since all the family would already be gathered. And my brother? He's just sitting there grinning like he'd cracked the code to happiness. I didn't even let her finish. I cut in right there with a hard absolutely not. Like, what kind of person thinks this is okay? This is our wedding, something we've poured our hearts into for over a year. And now he wants to turn it into his moment? I figured they'd be a little disappointed, but I wasn't ready for what came next. My dad jumps in with his usual family sticks together speech and starts acting like I'm being selfish for saying no. Then my brother opens his mouth and accuses me of ruining his big moment. Yeah, his moment. At my wedding. I just stared at him and asked, "Why can't you plan your own proposal? Why hijack our day?" And get this, he actually shrugged and said it'd be easier, since everyone would already be there and he wouldn't have to go through all the trouble of organizing something himself. I could feel the heat rising in my face. I was trying so hard to stay calm, but they kept pushing. Then my mom had the nerve to say I was overreacting. She even claimed that a proposal wouldn't take away from the wedding. that it might actually make it more memorable. My dad sat there nodding like this was the most sensible plan he'd ever heard. And my brother? He looked like a smug game show contestant who just nailed the final round. That's when something in me snapped. I didn't raise my voice at first, but I didn't mince words either. I looked at all three of them and said, "If you even think about hijacking our wedding like this, you're out. Don't come. Don't call. Don't expect a damn thing." And then I reminded them of something they'd clearly forgotten. Every single month, I send $650 to help cover that second mortgage. The same one they took out years ago to send my brother to college while I was left to fend for myself. I didn't do it for praise. I did it because I could. But if respect isn't part of the deal, that support ends. Immediately, you could have cut the tension with a knife. Nobody moved. My mom looked like she was holding back tears, and my dad just stared at me, stunned. But my brother? He dug in his heels. He started yelling, full-blown tantrum mode. Accused me of manipulating the family with money. Said I was punishing them all because he wanted to make a sweet gesture for his girlfriend. I said, "You want a sweet gesture? How about planning your own proposal instead of stealing someone else's moment?" That shut him up briefly. I stood up, said I wasn't going to keep arguing, and made it clear. Try it, and you're done. No wedding, no help, no more conversations. I'm finished. Then I left. No goodbyes, no turning around. Just gone. And ever since, I've been sitting with it. Part of me keeps wondering if I overreacted. I mean, families are complicated, right? But then I think, am I really asking too much for my wedding to actually be about my fiancé and me? Still, doubt creeps in. Maybe I was too blunt. Maybe I should have handled it differently. Or maybe, just maybe, they pushed me too far. When I got home, my fiancé took one look at me and knew something had gone sideways. I sat her down and laid it all out. My brother's ridiculous idea, my parents backing him, the whole mess. Her jaw hit the floor. She was livid, like hands shaking, kind of mad. She kept saying, "How dare they try to turn our day into his sideshow?" And honestly, she had every right to be angry. She even said we should cut my brother from the wedding guest list then and there. I told her I wanted to give them one more chance to drop this insanity, but she wasn't buying it. "They've already shown you who they are," she said. "What makes you think they'll change now?" She wasn't wrong. The next day, my phone rang again. Mom said she wanted to talk things out, which really meant she was hoping I'd cave. She kept repeating how it's just one little moment, and it won't take anything away from your big day. I told her, again, that the answer was no. Final. Done. Then came the emotional blackmail. She said my brother was heartbroken, that I was tearing the family apart over something small. I asked her, if it's so small, why can't he do it another time? Silence. Later that night, my brother showed up at my place unannounced. Didn't call. Didn't text. Just showed up and started banging on the door like the place was on fire. As soon as I opened it, he launched into this angry, rambling rant about how I destroyed everything and embarrassed him in front of our parents. He was yelling loud enough to wake the whole neighborhood. He went on about how his girlfriend was getting tired of waiting and that this was his last shot to lock it down before she left him. I told him, "Man, if this proposal is the only thing keeping her around, maybe your relationship's already in trouble." That hit a nerve. He went quiet for a beat, but then fired back even louder, calling me selfish, jealous, said I didn't want him to be happy. At that point, I'd had enough. I told him to leave before I called the cops. He stormed off, and for a second, I actually thought that might be the end of it. Wrong again. Next day, I get a call from my grandma. She's always been the one trying to keep the peace. Probably the only person in the family who hasn't completely lost their mind. She said she heard about the whole situation and wanted to help mediate, which really meant my brother had run crying to her with a heavily edited version of the story. She started off calm, saying she was disappointed in how I was handling things. Said weddings are a time for family unity and that it would mean so much to let my brother have his moment. I explained the real story, how he wanted to propose at my wedding, how my parents were totally on board, and how I said no. Simple. I figured that'd clear things up. But nope. She doubled down with the same tired line, "It's just a proposal, it won't steal the spotlight, it could be tasteful." I told her, "Grandma, it's our wedding. Our one day. Why is it so hard for people to respect that?" Then came the guilt. She said families should support each other, especially during milestones. I pushed back, "If family means anything, why is no one supporting me and my fiancé?" The more I stood my ground, the more upset she got. She kept making excuses for my brother, saying he's under pressure, that he just wants a meaningful proposal. I said he's 30 years old. He can figure out how to propose without stealing the spotlight at someone else's wedding. That didn't go over well. The conversation spiraled. Eventually, she started crying, saying I was being cruel. And yeah, I felt terrible seeing her like that. But I wasn't backing down. I told her, if being a good family member means letting people walk all over me, then maybe I don't need that version of family. After I hung up, I felt completely wiped out mentally, emotionally, the whole 9 yards. This thing has turned into a full-blown circus. Thank God for my fiancée. She's the only one who's had my back from the start. She's furious too, and rightfully so. They're way out of line, she keeps saying. And she's right. So we made a choice. This is our line in the sand. No more bending. No more giving an inch. My fiancée wasn't thrilled about how things had spiraled, but she knew we couldn't just let it slide. And she was right, we'd drawn a line, and now it had to stand. The days that followed were eerily quiet. No calls. No texts. Nothing. It was that kind of silence that makes you feel like something's coming. It felt more like a pause than peace. For a second, I let myself wonder if maybe, just maybe, they got the message. But I know my family. Letting things go isn't exactly their strong suit. Sure enough, a few days later, my mom called again. This time, her tone was different. Less guilt, more, let's be reasonable. She goes, "We've talked to your brother, and he's willing to compromise. He won't propose during the ceremony, just at the reception. Isn't that fair?" I had to stop and make sure I wasn't hallucinating. "No," I said. "It's not fair. It's still a no. I don't care when he wants to do it, it's not happening at our wedding. Period." She let out this tired sigh, like I was being the unreasonable one. "I don't understand why you're making this such a big deal." And that was it for me. I said, "If you bring this up again, you're off the guest list. I'm serious." Then I hung up. Since that call, there's been radio silence. No updates, no drop-ins. My brother hasn't showed up again, thank God. It's like we're in a Cold War now, everyone just pretending the other doesn't exist. Meanwhile, my fiancé and I have kept moving forward with our wedding plans, but it's like there's this storm cloud hovering in the background. Everything's coming together, venue, catering, playlist, but that tension's still there, always buzzing just under the surface. A part of me keeps hoping they'll finally come to their senses. But I'm not exactly counting on it. That's where things stood until recently. Before I jump into what happened next, I want to clear something up. A few people pointed out that it sounds like my fiancé hates my parents. Let me set the record straight. She doesn't hate them. She's actually made a real effort over the years to build a relationship with them. She's been kind, respectful, patient, probably more than they deserve. But she's also seen how I've been treated for years. She's watched me get brushed aside, ignored, treated like the afterthought. So yeah, she's protective. Not because she's petty, but because she loves me. And when people cross a line, she's not going to sit there and smile through it. I respect the hell out of that. Anyway, back to the mess. After the last round of nonsense with my brother, my mom, and then my grandma, things hit a weird standoff. I didn't reach out and they didn't either. And honestly, the silence was kind of nice. My fiancé and I leaned into the final wedding details. Cake tastings, seating charts, vendor confirmations, finally, the fun stuff. But even as we ticked things off the list, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. And surprise, it did. A few days ago, my mom called again. This time, her tone was different. Calmer. She said she didn't want to argue anymore. Said she just wanted to move forward as a family. I didn't trust it, but I let her speak. She told me my brother had agreed to drop the proposal plan. Said he realized it was disrespectful and wanted to make things right. Honestly, it felt too neat, like someone had fed him lines. I told her if he's serious about backing off, I want to hear it from him. Directly. She agreed and said he'd give me a call. I didn't exactly sit by the phone, but later that evening, sure enough, he called. His tone was flat. Not angry, just kind of forced. He said he was sorry for all the stress, that he didn't realize how important it was to us that the day stay focused on us. He claimed he'd decided to wait and propose another time. It didn't sound heartfelt, but hey, at least he was saying the right things. I told him, if you're serious about this, then cool. We'll move on. But if you try anything during the wedding, I won't hesitate to kick you out. He tried to play it off, told me to calm down. Then he got quiet and admitted his girlfriend was pulling away. Said she was already kind of cold toward him and now he wasn't even sure if proposing was the right move. Then, for the first time in a long while, we actually talked. Not as rivals or enemies or two people in a family tug-of-war. Just as brothers. He even cracked a few jokes and for a moment it felt like old times. He promised he wouldn't mess anything up. I told my fiancée about the call that night. I said I felt cautiously optimistic. She wasn't sold. I'll believe it when I see it, she said. And honestly? Same here. But at least things felt like they were finally settling down. With that out of the way, we threw ourselves back into wedding mode. It's just a couple of weeks away now and there's still a lot to lock in. We finalized the menu, met with the planner to go over the timeline, double-checked the DJ, the florist, all the last-minute stuff. It felt good to shift gears to focus on something joyful instead of dodging emotional landmines. But peace didn't last long. A few days after that call with my brother, I got a text from my dad. He wanted to meet up. Said he just wanted to check in and make sure everything was cool. I figured maybe he wanted to clear the air before the big day, so I agreed. When we sat down, I could tell something was off. He danced around the subject for a while, talking about the wedding and how proud he was of me, but he kept circling back to my brother, never quite naming what was bothering him. Eventually, he admitted he was nervous. Said he was worried my brother might get emotional and still try something. I wasn't shocked. I just nodded and told him if he does, he's out. No warnings. No second chances. That's when my dad gave me this long look and started with the weddings are emotional speech. Said I should try to understand if my brother got caught up in the moment. I stopped him cold. No, I said. Not this time. I've spent my whole life understanding everyone else. This is one day I'm not bending. I looked my dad dead in the eye and said, if you're asking me to look the other way so he can pull some stunt, then yeah, we've got a serious problem. I'm not letting anyone screw this up for me or for her. That shut him down pretty quick. He backed off, muttering something about not wanting to argue. But honestly, the whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth. It didn't feel like concern. It felt like he was testing me, poking at my boundaries to see if I'd cave. When I got home, I told my fiancée about it. She was furious, but not surprised. This is exactly why I don't trust them, she said. They're still covering for him. And yeah, it was hard to argue with that. So we came up with a plan B. We sat down with our wedding planner and told her we needed some extra eyes on things. We didn't dive into the whole family drama, but we made it clear if anyone tried to hijack the day, they were to be escorted out. No warnings. No scenes. It felt intense, maybe even a little paranoid, but after everything that had happened, I wasn't willing to gamble on a maybe. Now we're just 2 days out from the wedding. It's a weird mix of nerves and excitement. On one hand, we're double-checking everything, RSVPs, seating chart, vendor confirmations. On the other, there's this quiet dread humming in the back of my brain. What if he hasn't actually let it go? What if my parents are still encouraging him behind the scenes? What if this whole truce is just a setup? I keep brushing it off, trying to stay in the moment. But tomorrow is the rehearsal dinner, and while I want to believe everyone will behave, I've been burned too many times to feel confident. To their credit, my brother's been quiet. No texts. No drama. My parents haven't reached out either. On the surface, things look calm. But with my family? That usually means they're plotting, not resting. So now I'm counting the hours. 2 more days. If I can just get through the ceremony and the reception, we're home free. We've done everything we can to keep things locked down. The venue staff's briefed. The planner's ready. My fiancée and I? We're not playing games. One wrong move and people will be shown the door. She's fully ready to toss anyone who tries anything, and frankly, so am I. I'm trying to hold on to cautious optimism. But if there's one thing I've learned from all this, when it comes to my family, nothing is ever truly simple. Fingers crossed this peace isn't just the calm before another storm. You've all been waiting for it, and here it is, the wedding happened. It's over. We're married. And yeah, it was just as chaotic as I feared. We made it through, but not without some fireworks. The day started out beautifully. Weather was perfect. My fiancée, now wife, looked like something out of a dream. We had a quiet morning, surrounded by our close friends, going over final touches. For the first time in weeks, I actually felt calm. Like maybe, just maybe, this would go smoothly. My parents showed up on time. They looked happy. Polite. Normal, even. My brother arrived a little after them. No attitude. No weird tension. Honestly, he seemed fine. For a second, I let myself believe it. I thought maybe they actually meant it. Maybe they're really going to respect our day. The ceremony went off without a hitch. I barely held it together when she walked down the aisle. The vows, the rings, the kiss, it was all perfect. Everything we dreamed of. As we walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, I actually caught myself thinking, maybe I was wrong about all of this. Then came the reception. At first, it was amazing. Everyone was laughing, dancing, eating. The energy was light, joyful, the way we always hoped it would be. My wife and I made our rounds, hugging guests, thanking everyone for coming. That's when I spotted him, my brother, lingering near the DJ booth, whispering something to my dad. Both of them looked way too serious for a wedding reception. I felt it in my gut, something was coming. Still, I told myself to let it go. Don't jump to conclusions. Maybe they're just talking. Big mistake. Then the speeches started. My dad went first, said all the usual stuff about love, family, how proud he was of us. Fine. No issues there. Then it was my brother's turn. I didn't even want him to speak, but my mom had pushed for it. He's your brother, she'd said. He deserves to be part of the day. Right? He started off okay. Shared a few stories from when we were kids, cracked a few jokes. I was still tense, but it was going fine until it wasn't. Out of nowhere, he shifts gears and starts talking about his girlfriend. Says how being at our wedding has made him think about the future. The room went quiet. I felt my wife's hand tighten around mine. Then, right there in front of everyone, he turns to his girlfriend, pulls a box from his pocket, and drops to one knee. Dead silence. A few people clapped, awkward, confused. His girlfriend looked stunned, and not the good kind. Like deer in headlights stunned. My wife stood up and said, loud and clear, "Are you kidding me?" And just like that, I was on my feet. I didn't think, I just moved. Walked straight over to him, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "You need to leave. Now." He tried to protest. Said it was just a small moment, that it didn't take anything away from us. I wasn't hearing it. I signaled the venue staff, who we'd warned ahead of time, and they moved in right away. That's when it all exploded. My dad jumped in, shouting at me to let it go, saying I was making a scene. My brother yelled that I was being selfish. Meanwhile, his girlfriend looked like she wanted to disappear through the floor. The entire room was watching. The staff got my brother outside, but he didn't go quietly. He was still yelling, still acting like the victim in a mess he created. My dad followed close behind, probably thinking he could calm things down. I should have stayed inside and let them handle it, but I couldn't. I went after them. Outside the venue, it was chaos. My brother was pacing and ranting, shouting about how I'd humiliated him in front of everyone, how I'd ruined his big moment. My dad kept trying to play the middleman, throwing out lines like, "Let's just talk it through and this doesn't have to be how it ends." I wasn't interested in smoothing things over. "There's nothing to talk about," I told them. "You both disrespected me and my wife. You're done. Go home." That's when my brother completely lost it. He took a step toward me, chest puffed up like he was about to swing. He didn't get the chance. The venue staff stepped between us fast and held him back. My dad snapped, started yelling at them, saying they were overreacting, saying this is family business. But the staff wasn't playing that game. One of them told him, calm but firm, "Sir, if you don't leave now, we're calling the police." And right then, my brother's girlfriend finally spoke up. She looked at him, shook her head, and said, "I didn't even want this. You made a fool of yourself." Then she turned and walked away, left him standing there looking stunned and alone. Eventually, the staff got both of them off the property. My dad went reluctantly, grumbling the whole way. My mom came out next, crying. She ran up to me, begging to let them back in. I looked at her and said, "If you don't go back inside and behave, you're next." She froze. The look on her face, it was like I'd slapped her. But she didn't say another word. She just turned around and walked back into the reception. When I stepped back inside, the air was thick. Everyone had seen what happened and you could feel the tension. Guests were whispering. Eyes followed me everywhere I went. My wife came straight to me. She wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "Let's move on. This is still our day." And just like that, we shifted gears. Took a breath. Got back out on the dance floor. We cut the cake, shared our first dance, and tried to pull the night back together. It wasn't easy, but we managed. By the end, people were smiling again. Some were dancing, some were drunk enough to forget the drama. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't leave a shadow. My brother's little stunt? It left a mark. There was no erasing it. When everything finally wrapped up and we slid into the back seat of the car, my wife and I just slumped into each other, exhausted. She looked at me, laughed a little, and said, "Well, at least we handled it." We both cracked up because what else could we do at that point? It wasn't the fairy tale we imagined, but we were married. And that's what mattered most. But, of course, the chaos didn't stop there. The next day, the whispers started. Word spread fast through the family. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion. Some relatives called under the pretense of checking in, but really they just wanted details. Others didn't even bother pretending. They came right out and scolded me like I was the one who caused the scene. My aunt actually said, "You know how he is. You should have just let it go for the sake of peace." Peace? What peace? Meanwhile, the family group chat turned into a passive-aggressive war zone. Cryptic messages, pointed likes, silence from the usual chatty ones. It was exhausting. Like emotional landmines everywhere. At that point, I decided to take a break from it all. My wife and I unplugged for a couple of days. We ignored the calls, muted the texts, and just focused on being newlyweds. It was peaceful while it lasted. But when we finally checked our phones, it was a mess. Dozens of missed calls and texts from my mom, my dad, and, of course, my brother. My mom's messages were a roller coaster. One minute she was crying about how I embarrassed the family. The next, she was accusing me of humiliating my brother. My dad tried to play it cool, neutral, mediator vibes, but you could tell he was still leaning toward defending my brother. Then there were the messages from the man himself. My brother. They were pure rage. He called me selfish. Said I ruined his life. Claimed I turned his girlfriend against him. Which, funny enough, brings us to the final twist: she left him. Apparently, the wedding stunt was the last straw. A cousin who's close with her told me she was furious, felt like he completely disregarded her feelings, made the whole proposal about himself. She even said she felt secondhand embarrassment watching him get dragged out. And honestly, I don't blame her. If I were in her shoes, I'd have run, too. Eventually, I answered one of my mom's calls. Figured I had to face the music at some point. The moment I picked up, she launched into it. Crying, begging, asking how I could do this to my own brother. He's devastated, she said. Broken. Don't you care about this family? I kept my voice calm. Told her he did this to himself. I warned him. Repeatedly. She didn't want to hear it. She kept hammering the same line: it was just a proposal. It wouldn't have ruined anything. I told her it was our wedding. He made it about himself. If that makes me the bad guy for standing up for us, then fine. I'll be the bad guy. She flipped after that, started shouting about how I was tearing the family apart. I hung up. I wasn't doing that again. A couple of days later, just when things were starting to settle, there was a knock at the door. My wife and I looked at each other, already knowing. It was my dad. He had that "we need to talk" look on his face. Said he wanted to clear the air, but it turned into another lecture. Another guilt trip. You didn't have to escalate it like that, he said. Family's supposed to forgive. I looked him straight in the eye and said I didn't escalate anything. I set a boundary. He crossed it. What was I supposed to do? Just let him walk all over me again? He didn't have an answer. Just stared at me, then tried to pivot to how we can move on and things don't have to be like this. But the damage was already done. At one point, my dad looked me dead in the eye and said, "You know your brother doesn't have anyone else. You're his role model." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how backwards it was. If I'm his role model, he's been doing a hell of a job ignoring every lesson he could have learned from me. But the real chaos? That came a couple days later. My wife and I decided to go out for dinner, nothing fancy, just a local spot we both like. After everything that had happened, we thought maybe finally we could catch a break. Have a quiet night. Breathe. But, of course, peace wasn't in the cards. Guess who showed up? My brother stormed into the restaurant like he'd been tracking us. I still have no clue how he knew we were there, but he made a beeline for our table, eyes locked, face twisted with anger. Before I could even react, he was standing over us, yelling. Loud. "You ruined my life," he shouted. Everyone in the restaurant turned to stare. My wife froze, her hand tightening around her water glass like she might chuck it at his face. I stayed seated. I looked up at him and said, calm as I could, "You need to leave before you make this any worse for yourself." That just fired him up more. He started going off about how his girlfriend left him, how I embarrassed him in front of our family, how I destroyed everything. "You made me look like a joke," he said. "You destroyed my relationship." I told him, "No, you did that. You trashed your own relationship when you ignored every warning and disrespected people who trusted you. You're in this mess because you couldn't keep your ego in check." That was it for him. He tried to push past the table, maybe to get in my face, I'm not sure. But the restaurant manager had already stepped in. The guy was calm but firm. Told him to leave. My brother refused. Claimed he had a right to confront me. The manager didn't argue. Just said, "Either you walk out or we're calling the cops." And then, just like that, it escalated. My brother shoved at the manager to get closer to me, but two guys sitting nearby had seen enough. They stood up, got between us, and physically held him back. It was a full-blown scene. Shouting. People grabbing their phones. My wife was livid. My brother? still screaming as they dragged him out, kicking, cursing like a tantrum in a grown man's body. We didn't even finish dinner. On the way home, my wife sat in silence for a minute. Then she said, "I think it's time to cut ties." And for the first time, I didn't argue. I agreed. This whole nightmare has made something painfully clear. My family might be blood, but that doesn't mean they're good for me. And they sure as hell aren't good for my wife. Since that night, I've gone full no contact with my brother. I've scaled way back with my parents too, just the bare minimum, and even that feels like too much sometimes. As for my brother, word travels fast in families, and apparently he's been on a PR tour, telling anyone who'll listen that I'm the reason his life is in shambles. His breakup, the wedding incident, the public humiliation, somehow I'm the villain in every version of his story. At first, that bothered me. It stung. But not anymore. I'm done spending energy on someone who refuses to take accountability for anything. I'm done cleaning up after his disasters or defending myself to people who weren't there and never cared about my side to begin with. Yeah? My wife and I are focusing on us. Building a life that isn't built around damage control. It's not always easy. Cutting ties with family feels unnatural sometimes, but honestly, it's the healthiest decision I've made in a long time. I've learned something through all this. There's no peace in trying to keep people in your life who only bring chaos. Sometimes choosing yourself and choosing peace means walking away from people who've shown you again and again that they don't respect you. That's where I'm at. And that's it for now. Thanks to everyone who's stuck through this madness with me. Seriously. It helps to know I'm not the only one who thinks this whole situation was insane. I'll check back in when the dust settles. Take care.